Good morning, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. I'm just going to give everybody a couple of minutes to get on, get their tea, coffee, water. It's a little bit early for beer and wine just yet, so we won't go into that just yet. But give everybody a chance to jump on. Thanks for jumping on today. If you want to put a message in the chat box or the Q&A box, just to make sure that things are working, then we can sort of see that people can see and hear us, which is always good fun. A bit of housekeeping for today. So first of all, the webinar is going to be recorded. So if you do miss anything, you need to drop out, or if you think actually there's somebody else in the business or another contact that you're aware of and you think they're definitely going to need to hear this, then it is all going to be recorded and we'll distribute that around afterwards as well. We're not expecting any technical problems today. So if things do go a bit ropey, it might be your side. We're not expecting it to be our side. Sometimes if it does drop off, just drop a message in the chat bot if anything happens and you can't see us or hear us, or sometimes just closing it and opening it back up on the same link. Most of the kids should be in school, so that shouldn't be a problem, them stealing the internet with Netflix and things. Co-workers might be stealing it though with Netflix, but that's a completely different problem and one that probably needs to be resolved. So in terms of, as we're going through today as well, please feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A box as we're going along and in the chat box. We have got a specific Q&A section at the end, but if you want to ask anything as you're going along, so you don't forget it, but then B, we might pick it up on the go if it fits in and it's really relevant to what we're discussing at that point in time as well. So thanks for joining us today. We're just going to do a couple of introductions before we really dive into the detail. And just as set the tone for this as well, what I really want to try and give the audience today and everybody listening in is a real practical set of tools that they can take away, because I think there's a lot of discussion around MTD at the moment, which is very good, but a lot of it is still quite high level in theory because, to be honest, there still are a few unknowns. But what we're going to try and do is really give you something that helps you unpack what you need to now go and do within your firm and your practice to actually start to get ready for this stuff. So not too much theory and a little bit more practical. So I'm David. I am the CEO of XU Magazine, a fintech magazine where we look at all of the main platforms such as QuickBooks and how they integrate into different apps and systems in their ecosystem to create some really great processes and systems for accountants, bookkeepers, and their clients. I'm going to hand it over to Eriona to introduce herself, quickly say who you are, what you do, and a bit about your background for 30 seconds.
Oh, thank you so much, David. My name's Eriona. I'm the Managing Director of Majors Accounts, which is a small family-run accountancy practice based in South East London. We specialise in the property development construction sector, but also have a lot of individual subcontractors and sole traders and landlords that we help throughout the year. And I also founded Vault, so I help accountants and bookkeepers kind of transform their accountancy businesses digitally.
Brilliant, thanks, Eriona. And Anthony, go for it.
Thanks, David. My name's Anthony. I am the Senior Professional Services Consultant here at Intuit QuickBooks. I'm in my 9th year at QuickBooks now. My role essentially is to work with accountants like yourselves to really understand your current processes and maybe how we can improve and introduce efficiencies by taking advantage of some of the features in software such as QuickBooks.
Amazing, thanks. Thank you. You guys definitely did a better job than I would have for that one. So first of all, MTD sounds, we've been talking about it forever, it seems like, and it always keeps getting pushed back, and it really is here. So Anthony, do you want to start us with a bit of a timeline in terms of where we've been, where we are, and where we might be going with this stuff?
Absolutely, and you're right, it feels like we've been talking about this for so long now. We started our beta back in April 2024. We launched our testing phase, and hopefully there's some of you on the call today that have joined our beta, because we're really always looking for those insights. They've really helped us develop what our MTD offering is looking like. From April 2025, we're now currently in the beta phase. You can still sign up. Even though we're halfway through the year now, we're almost halfway through the year, you still can sign up, and I would recommend it because then you get to experience what the MTD process is going to look like, get ahead of the curve as well. I guess the big date, though, is April 2026. This is when the first tranche of people are going to be impacted, landlords and individuals whose income exceeds 50,000. And then from April 2027, we'll be looking at those between 30,000 and 50,000. And our assumption is that from 2028, we will be pulling in more of our sole traders and landlords as well. If we can move on to the next slide. So it's worth noting that not everyone's going to be impacted in this first batch. It's really those that are over 50,000, the landlords. It's quite a big number. HMRC estimates that this will impact 1.5 million taxpayers. That's 45% of the sole traders are going to be impacted by 2027. Okay, handing
Just
back
done
to
the
you.
classic, and yeah, thanks. I've just done the absolute classic and muted myself because I had a cough and I've not unmuted myself. You'd think we'd be past that by now, wouldn't you, after doing this for quite a few years. But anyway, I like to keep ourselves on our toes. So in terms of what we wanted to start looking at, first of all, is the client base, because obviously MTT comes in and we're going to be transposing information over to HMRC, but actually it's the clients that are at the center of all of this in reality, and it's those clients that we need to really start to focus on and starting to look at that client base and saying, well, actually, we've got one big client base within our firm or practice, or it might be a smaller client base, depending on how big you are, but there's a client base, and how do we then start to actually segment and break that down to say, well, look, how are we actually going to start this thing? So how are we going to start to group them down in terms of, rather than trying to attack everybody at once, because as we know, that kind of stuff rarely works, and you don't have the time to actually go and spend it with specific people who are probably going to just miss your emails, miss your calls, and just get on with their day-to-day because that's what they're doing. And it's trying to look at, first of all, how can we start to break these clients down? And some of these areas that we've looked at, and I want to dive into this in a minute with Eriona, but some of the ones that we've seen so far, it's a case of looking at, right, well, who are our clients and can we start to break them down potentially by turnover? First of all, are they applicable for this first trench of the 50,000 or not? Because if they're not, then okay, great, we can park them for a little bit later. Secondly, it's in a case of, well, who's actually got stuff in place or not already in terms of software? Because if they're pretty much 80% there already, well, actually, it's not too much more of a push to get them across the line. It's just a few tweaks and things that we might need to make. But then, as we know, we've got some people who are still in the sort of carrier bag brigade where this kind of conversation is going to be completely alien to them. And it's right, okay, we're going to have to go for the whole hog here. And then it's a case of, right, once we've done all of that, how do we then start the communication piece of, right, this is happening whether we like it or not, and how are we going to make it happen? And Eriona, I think it'd be great to bring you in here and start, because I know you guys at Majors have been doing quite a lot of this already. And it would be great to hear, how did you start that journey, and how did you start this piece of breaking the client base down, communicating with clients, and how's it gone?
It's been a journey. So we did start our communication with them, and I guess internally for us to understand how it's going to work, what do we think we're going to need to have in place. But initially we were just communicating to the clients to let them know what MTD is. When we were doing this, not many accountants were. So a lot of our clients were like, no, I spoke to my friend's accountant. That's not a thing. You're making this up. And it didn't help with how HMRC kept delaying it. So we were like, guys, it's going to happen this April. Like an extra delay. And it was like, see, we told you so. You're making this all up. So it's been, when I say it's been a journey, that has been part of the journey. But I'm actually really excited that this is finally happening because I see so many benefits to it. But what we have done to prepare in the last 2 years, we decided to be really strict with our clients in that we were not accepting any paperwork from the sole trader kind of sector or landlords in physical format. So if they wanted to work with us, they would have to use some kind of app or a digital means to send us their information. It was difficult at the beginning because they were used to doing everything in another way, and we're telling them, no, you have to change from now on, and human nature is that we don't like change. But slowly they got used to it. Now they can't think of another way to do it. But the next stage for us is, now that we've got them on some kind of digital system, it was breaking down, as you mentioned, who will this affect initially? Although we are communicating it to everybody, because at some point they will fall into this, and just because we give them extra information is not going to hurt anyone. But our main kind of campaign right now is for those that will fall under, come April 2026, they will have to fall into this and start working in a different way. That has meant, we've communicated with them in a few different ways. Emails, we haven't sent letters anymore, but emails, text messages, even phone calls to them when we have year-end meetings, or when we did their accounts, tax returns in the last few years. We mentioned, well, seeing as we're doing this, do you know that very soon this is going to change? And it's going to be 4 times a year, plus the end of year return as well. And just kind of introducing them to the idea of how it's going to change, that they're going to have to see us at least 4 times, if not more, in the year. They're going to have to make sure that their processes allow them to collect all their information in a way that it will be really easy to send over to HMRC, or be as complete as possible. But yeah, initially right now we're just targeting and spending more time speaking to those that will fall under the April deadline.
And within that timeline as well, so you said obviously it's taken a little bit of time just to get people from complete paperwork to where they are now to then need to do another job. What do you think that average timeline has been for clients in terms of from that initial discussion to actually getting them to work the way that you want them to work?
If I'm honest, and it's not a popular opinion, but I found that it really works, it's up to the accountant to be strict. When we were starting to get them used to this idea, and because I did actually start about 3-4 years ago, and I suggested, guys, do you want to use this? It'll be easier, the benefits are XYZ and so on. They're like, yeah, that sounds good, I'll do it next year because I've already got the paperwork here now. But definitely we'll look at it for next year. Next year came around and obviously nothing happened again. But it was when I decided, right, we will not start anything until you use these apps. There are people that came in with the paperwork and I said, great, do you want to sit down there and take some pictures? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not taking any of this unless you want me to scan them, and I'll charge you a fee, which will probably be about the same amount as your tax return. Otherwise I'm not using it. And it was, for them, they were taken aback, and as long as, well, when I kind of stood my ground and said, this is how we work from now on, they were pretty good at getting on board really quickly. And now we don't need to ask them to use the apps. They know. They're like, oh, by the way, I've got everything. It's in the apps. You'll be able to find it there. But if we hadn't have done that, it would have been a lot more difficult to get them on there. So it was almost immediately, if you want to call it that. When we decided we were going to do it, that's when we were able to get them on to all the apps.
Yeah. Okay, and that's good, because I think that's some of the feedback I've heard from people. They feel like these conversations can drag on, and I think you've just hit the nail on the head of saying, well, actually, this is how we make sure it doesn't drag on, by just actually saying you've got to do it. And I suppose the good thing for people listening is you've got the good cop, bad cop thing of saying it's not me, it's HMRC. It's like we've got to do it. I think
that helps. That helps right now. Helps. For us, it was more difficult a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, this is not happening. It's been delayed, so that made it a bit more difficult. Then we turned that, well, sorry, this is how we work now. It doesn't make sense for us to work in any other way. This is what the future of this is anyway. So you have to work like this. But people forget that they actually rely on us for everything. Yeah. They do expect us, when something goes wrong, they come to us to help them out, and they need our guidance. They just need to be pushed sometimes, and then once they're there, they see the benefits always. Yeah. It's just we have to get them on there, and then they will be thankful for it.
Yeah, I heard somebody use the analogy the other day that accountants are a little bit like agents are for football players, but it's a case of accountants are like that for business owners. You get called up because it's like, oh, I've just broken this. What do I do?
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. I'll come in and fix it. Yeah, it's not quite the same as football players, but I think we get what they're saying. So, yeah. And just on this last piece, one last thing I want to touch on around the segmenting of the client base. So, practically, how did you go about that within your client base and choosing who to go for first?
So on our systems, when we did a tax return, we also made a note of the turnover of each client for the last 2 years. And then we did a report based on, okay, who is at 50,000 plus turnover, who are sole traders or who are landlords, because landlords could also be directors of companies. So there's a mixture there. So it was segmenting how much is their rental income part, is that over 50,000 or not? And then once we were able to have that in place, we segmented that, okay, these are the people that we now need to call or bring into the office or just communicate more with them. But everyone else who may fall into it coming years, send them communication out as well, just to let them know what it will be and what it will look like. But
Yeah,
initially, it was just getting that tranche that we really need to speak to and get them on board.
brilliant. Thank you very much. So one of the things from our side in terms of is so looking at some of these key considerations as well, and I'd probably say now this is the next biggest thing that is coming up that's going to it's basically for firms to sort of contend with. It's MTD, because we've got a hard deadline. It's April. It's, as far as we're aware, it's not going to be pushed back again, and it's a case of yeah. I know there's a few people saying please let it be and please let it not, but at the moment it's what we know. It's here to stay, and we've got to do it. And I think it's a case of, right, let's jump in and let's do this. And one of the big things that people come on to, like all things with accountancy over the last few years, is pricing. Pricing's been a massive thing anyway, in terms of looking at value-based pricing, advisory type pricing, package type pricing, having those conversations which historically have always been weird and awkward conversations, and it's a case of actually bringing that to the forefront. Now what we're potentially doing is adding another conversation on, of saying, well as using all this weird and wonderful tech that you might or might not like, it's a case of, well, actually on top of that, probably going to have to charge us some more money for it as well. And it's starting to have a look at that. Now, in terms of from your side, how are you guys going around the process of looking at this, of saying, right, well, we charge you X, now we need to potentially charge you Y, and we don't know what Y looks like yet? How first were you actually building out the blocks to work out what that is?
Well, first of all, I think what's really important is to have an honest conversation with the client. And this is what I've found in all areas of our business, to be honest. But for this industry, who are super price sensitive, sitting them down and saying, listen, right now we speak to you once a year, you do your tax return, we give you your tax figure. You don't necessarily want anything else other than that. But we are now going to have to do this 5 times. So we meet every 3 months and then we do the end of year. Can you imagine how much extra time we will need to get involved with you, for you to send us information, for one of our team members to process that, submit that, give you an estimated tax liability figure, because that's what we're going to be able to do. If this was your business, do you think that you would need more capacity, more time to spend with you? They're like, yeah, that's so much more work. Okay, great. So you can expect that there will be a price increase for this, right? They're like, yeah, that makes sense. However, if you use all the apps that we're saying and the processes that we will help you set up, if you don't have any, our hope is that we won't increase it too much. We're not looking to increase it 4 or 5 times more. We're doing everything we can to minimize it, but you need to work with us to help us get that information in a timely manner, use the software, and so we can make sure you're compliant. So that's the conversation that has worked pretty well with the client, to be honest. So they don't start saying, what? Can't believe you're doing this, because they forget it's not us, it's the government regulation. They think it's us. They're like, why are you charging me this? Why are you doing that? So speaking to them in this way has really helped. And then internally, we're having conversations on, well, we don't know how much time it's going to take realistically. We might have an idea, but until we start working on it, depending on how good the clients are going to be with us in sending that information and using the apps appropriately and being timely with all of that, then that will kind of determine how much extra capacity we may or may not need for them to process the quarterly returns. So for us, this is why it's super important that we've put people into the pilot scheme, so we can start to understand what that will look like. again, I say we have an idea, but it could be completely different as we work through it throughout the year. It could be that the first month or the first quarter is an absolute joke. No one sends everything in on time. No one does what we're saying, and it takes ages because this is something new for them. So you've got to be understanding of that as well. But if we can see it gets better and better throughout the year, we find better ways of communicating with our clients, and understand how they're working, so we know how we need to react or be more proactive with the concerns and the issues that they're having. That may then give us a better idea of what will the pricing look like. That it's going to increase is a guarantee. It's just depending where that's going to be. Not 100% sure yet, but that's what this year is for.
Yeah, and on there, and I don't want to steal Anthony's thunder on this because he's got some great slides coming up for this, but with using tech, as we know, in terms of other work that we've done in areas previously with clients, and now it's a case of getting them from the paper to where they are, and now going forward again, we're going to have to do some more, and hopefully if we put some really good systems in place, and for example, use some of the tools that QuickBooks have got, actually, we can hopefully try and make a lot of this fairly streamlined. Have you guys considered or been discussing about what potential opportunities that might then arise if all of a sudden we've got these clients where we only ever used to see information once a year after the event? Actually, we're going to see pretty much bang up to date information all of the time. What does that enable us to do?
Honestly, this is why I'm so excited about MTD, and not many accountants are in this position, but I'm so excited because there's a huge opportunity here. Even if it's for something as simple as, when we get information from a client for their tax return and we see what's happened and we give them the tax figure, and then they get angry at why they're paying so much tax. And we say, well, we did call you and you said stop calling me throughout the year. If we'd have known what was going on, we could have advised you on that. But we don't have like an oracle, or we are not oracles trying to figure out what's going on in your business, right? But this will force them to speak to us. Something as simple as, hey, how are you? Or, we've noticed the last 3 months have been like this. Is that accurate? Is this what are your plans going forward? Do you know that you're roughly making this much? You might be able to get finance if you want to grow, or do you want to prepare for your tax figure because it looks like your cash flow is not great and you're not going to be able to pay at the end of the year? Conversations like this will be facilitated by the quarterly submissions, because we're going to have to tell them this is what it's looking like. Are you happy to submit? And from there, we can upsell and see what else we can do with those clients to achieve whatever it is. Some may want more freedom, some may want more profit, some may want growth, but at least they will have us there with them. That's where I see huge opportunities. We just need to make sure that we are able to harness that and not turn it into a compliance, here you go, submitted, I don't want to speak to you anymore. But with even other areas of our business where we call the clients just to say, hi, how are you? Nothing else. Just that, we come out of a half an hour discussion with an A4 piece of paper with so many points that we can help our clients with. We didn't know that they were going through it, but also the client didn't know that we could help with those areas. So it starts to solidify that relationship with them, and we can do so much more. And that's where we become invaluable then, I think, to our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just touching on before we move on to some of the specifics around some of the tools that are available to help us practically do this. So, in terms of this communication piece around costs, benefit, time, and we just covered a whole host of topics on here. So, first of all, are there any clients that you haven't yet started to communicate yet with, and why might that be?
Not really, to be honest. Everyone is aware. Well, I say that. So we've been sending out communication for a while, and those clients who will fall into the tranche in April, we sent out emails asking them if they would be willing to go onto the pilot scheme, because they would be perfect examples for us to see how it will work. Email after email, then we phoned them, and on the phone they were like, oh yeah, I've heard something about it, but I don't really know how it works. I need to sit down and think about it. After we've given them like everything so many times, even all this effort, you still need that time to speak to them and help them understand what does it actually mean. And a lot of them are worried because how much more time will it take out of their businesses? because they're time poor
Yeah.
anyway. They're doing everything, and that's where we step in and say, no, you don't need to do anything. We'll do it all for you. Just let us help you so we can help ourselves as well, to in turn then help our entire client base. But everyone should be aware. Whether they absorb that information or not is a different matter, and that's where we need to then push through and double down on that communication by starting to call
Cool.
now.
Yeah, and those clients that are quite adamant, for example, that they're not going to be able to get on board with the tech piece, which I think is so integral to this in terms of making it work smoothly for both sides of the party. But those clients that are really either struggling with that or saying like, how am I ever going to do this? I definitely can't do this. How have you worked and communicated with those clients to say, look, A, you've got to do it. B, this is how we're going to help you get there.
Do you know what? I don't believe anyone cannot do it. I think they all can, and it's all
Yeah.
excuses. So again, this is where us being like, sure of ourselves and helping them with it. We do need to hold their hand throughout it, but I always start off the conversation with clients. I'm like, do you use Facebook? Especially the older generation. Do you use Facebook? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do you know how to upload a photo on Facebook? They're like, yeah, every time I go on holiday, and they start telling me this stuff. I'm like, perfect. That's all I'm going to need you to do. So if
Yeah.
you can do
Okay.
that as a starting point, then you're doing amazing. And then as you get used to it, we will start to introduce you to other aspects of the app that will mean you do everything in one place, and it will be a lot easier for you. So there hasn't been a single person that hasn't been able to do it. But it
Perfect.
was an investment on our time as well. I see it, well, some people see it as
Yeah.
a cost. I see it as an investment because look where we are now, right? They're all using the apps and making everybody's life easier, but it's worth it to get them on board, and then they're using everything as they should.
So strict parent eat your broccoli time
Yes.
type discussion. Yeah.
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 That's what it feels like. Yeah. So, and in terms of, to be honest, I think we've just dived through most of this slide really in terms of um, how to communicate with those clients. But in terms of Anthony, do you want to start to give a bit of an overview from your side and from QuickBooks perspective of how you've tried to build this out with all of those clients and all of those discussions in mind that we've just talked about?
Absolutely. And yeah, first of all, I just want to say how great it is to hear how Eriona is approaching this. And I think we started working together before MTD for that. So a lot of the learnings we had from that process, I think, are equally applied here as well. And I think, the software support and making use of the software, and you're going to hear a lot around AI and how that can support with MTD as well. I think it's really key. And as Ariana alluded to, everyone's used to using apps these days. So, yeah, our first kind of recommendation or suggestion is getting your client to use the mobile app, because then it doesn't really feel like they're doing bookkeeping or accounting to start with, just another app on their phone. So simple things like taking pictures of receipts when they're out and about so they don't come and drop a bag on your desk full of receipts. Obviously, with QuickBooks, all of our products, from our sole trader license right up to our advanced mid-market products, are all going to be MTD compliant. All you have to do, go in, select the company type as a sole trader or landlord, and MTD for income tax will be available. Our basic solution for self-assessment for MTD is going to be our latest product, our Sole Trader. It's a really nice, simple, friendly solution. I feel like we've removed quite a lot of the areas where clients will typically, go in and be adventurous, possibly make a mess that you might need to clear up. There's a lot less of that available in Sole Trader. I think on the mobile phone app, you can take a picture of a receipt, create an estimate or invoice, check the bank feed, and record your mileage. And that's pretty much it. So it's a great solution for those clients that we want to start encouraging them to do a little bit themselves, whether that's taking a picture of a receipt or creating an invoice when they're out and about. And of course, we'll be here to support your clients too. We don't want all the work to be falling on our accountant's shoulders. So all of the clients, new clients to QuickBooks, have access to a free 45-minute one-to-one onboarding session where we'll walk the client through the basics of using QuickBooks, things like creating an invoice template, how to use the receipt capture tool, how to classify business and personal transactions if they're using sole trader. They'll be able to call in 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. as our accountants can do, directly to one of our UK-based call centres, so you can always talk to a human being. Also have live chat available in the evenings and weekends. Now, for those clients that maybe are really going to be resistant to using software and we're not going to be able to crack the whip and get them trained up, we also have our ledger solution. So this is for internal bookkeeping purposes only. You'll be able to prepare and submit the quarterly updates. You'll be able to set up bank feeds and bank rules to really automate that data in. This is really key. We really want to automate as much of these processes as possible. I've done a lot of sessions on MTD over the last 6 months, and I hear a lot from accountants about we're going to have to do 5 submissions where we were doing 1 previously. And I think if we use the automation, use bank rules, bank feeds to pull through that data, actually the quarterly submissions are just going to be 2 clicks, and I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. So as Eriona was alluding to earlier, I think if we take advantage of the software, the technology, we might actually find that MTD reduces our workload rather than increasing it. But if you want to get a sense of how much work is going to be involved just to get your clients on board. So on the screen now, if you've got your mobile phones handy, scan the QR code and that will take you to our onboarding calculator. And here you can work out how many clients and how to spread that workload over the coming months. What we don't want to do, and we saw this a lot with MTD for VAT, is everything was left to the last minute, and then there was this crazy rush to get all of the clients onboarded in time. Obviously, again, we're going to be here to support, to reduce the burden. Feel free at any time to reach out to your account manager. We've got a team of service delivery managers, my team, professional services consultant. We're here to help you get started. We can help segment the client base, create an action plan. I'm a project manager, love building out some goals and milestones and holding everyone accountable. And we'll make sure that everyone in the team's upskilled so you can get the most out of the Intuit platform. Eriona, at this point, I don't know if you've got any recommendations around how you've calculated how much work is going to be involved to get all of your clients onboarded for MTD?
Onboarded, so on the actual apps or onboarding the client, do you mean?
I think a mixture of both, like preparing them for what's going to be required for MTD, but also maybe if they're not using a software solution currently, how long is it going to take to get them ready, set up and using the software?
So when a client comes to us, we usually spend about half an hour to an hour onboarding them onto the system, showing them what they need to do. How long that takes depends on how kind of proficient the client is with tech. So we may only introduce them to the scan receipts and that's it initially. So that won't take too long. If we see that they may be able to do more like raising an invoice, connecting the bank feed up, that may take up to an hour. And then we will try and check in every month for maybe 15-20 minutes at a time just to double check if they're okay, or we will say to them if they have any issues with it then they can contact us. But honestly, I think in total not more than 2 hours per client until they get used to it and comfortable with it.
Which isn't a massive amount of time.
It's for the efficiency gains
to on board. So yeah, if you haven't tried out the calculator, I think it's a good opportunity now just to get an idea of how much work is potentially going to be involved getting your clients set up. So how can we support with MTD for income tax? So as I mentioned earlier, QuickBooks, we've got the full end-to-end process, getting that data into the software easily, whether that's using receipt capture, bank feeds, bank rules, using the automation. We have the tools in software as well to help you review that data easily. Again, we're going to see more and more AI support coming in, where the AI will be doing mini audits. So before you do a quarterly submission, let the AI just review that data, looking for inconsistencies, duplicates, so you don't have to manually check all of your accounts. And we'll work all the way through to the MTD submission for landlords and for multi-income sources, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, what that solution looks like. So when you're getting started with QuickBooks, the main area as an accountant is going to be your QuickBooks Online accountant. It's the central hub. You can manage all of your clients from there. You can see the status of any work you're doing. You can also manage non-QuickBooks clients through the accountant hub as well. So it's a useful place to have all of those clients in one place, regardless of the software that they're currently using. So when it comes to the end-to-end and accounting process and the bookkeeping workflows, a great place to start is Practice Manager. And if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely recommend getting access to Practice Manager. If you have at least 5 clients on QuickBooks, it's a free solution. And you can use that for things like segmenting your client base, so that you can add a custom field into Practice Manager that tracks the turnover. So if at the moment you've got those clients that are hovering in or around the 50,000, you can track when they go over and will become required to submit for MTD, or tracking things like the VAT threshold. You can also use Practice Manager to manage your emails and send in bulk emails out to clients that are going to be impacted by MTD. You can create bespoke workflows for the project, so you can set up tasks for your clients, making sure that everyone is having their submissions done on time, that their accounts are being reviewed before those submissions are being made as well. Now, when it comes to the bookkeeping side, as I said, we've got MTD capability across the full range, but in reality, you're probably not going to use our mid-market advanced solution for a sole trader. So the 3 licenses that we're really focusing on for our MTD self-assessment is going to be our ledger. So that's where your clients are not going to access the account, and you're going to do all of the bookkeeping and submission for them. The sole trader license, where we will be giving the client access to create invoices and estimates. And then if they're above the VAT threshold, then we'll be looking at our Simple Start. Simple Start and sole trader both also support CIS for subcontractors at all. But the important thing is MTD is going to be available for free across all of our license types. Now, at this point, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what's coming. We are going to run a webinar along with XU Mag, I think on the 9th of July in a couple of weeks' time, where we'll go into a lot more detail around what our MTD solution looks like. But I'll just run you through a quick sneak preview and how we're going to manage multi-source income, which is the hot topic in all the sessions I've been running. So you're going to your QuickBooks license, and here we can see Conrad's got 2 income sources, has a construction, Airbnb. So we're going to the construction QuickBooks. We've enabled the taxes for him, so we can see the tax liability for this part of his business. But now we're going to go into our new feature, and this is a sneak preview of our MTD app. And here we're going to start combining our multi-income sources. So I can see I need to submit my Q1 submission for Conrad Construction and the Airbnb, and we're going to combine these 2 together. So it will just be 1 click to submit for both of the income sources. I can see the position of what's in QuickBooks versus what's on HMRC. We want to make sure that that's matching. And then I can see what makes up the amounts that we're about to submit on behalf of Conrad. We can export this as a CSV or a report if we want to send it to Conrad before we click the submit button. But I'm going to hit submit. HMRC has received the update, and that's it. That is the quarterly submission. We've submitted 2 separate income sources, combine them together, all in 2 clicks. So I really want, if you come away with one thing from these sessions, it's how quick and easy these quarterly submissions are going to be if we take advantage of the automation. And then when it comes to the final declaration at the end of the year, you'll be able to work through, as you would with an SA 103, things like sole trader income, is there property income, capital gains tax, for example, they sold a property, are they using cryptocurrencies? You can add all of the allowances and any tax breaks. I really like this feature where you'll be able to see all of your clients' data in one place, and you'll be able to see the submission, what's been submitted in terms of quarterly and final declarations. We'll see a lot more of that in the next session in a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak preview. Okay, so we've been listening to lots of accountants through the first phase of MTD, through our testing and beta. And the important thing is we're taking that feedback on board, and if you can sign up and provide us with more feedback, we can make sure that our solutions are really suitable for our accountants and are delivering. You're not alone. We've got lots of support, whether that's from my team, from the service delivery team, from our assisted onboarding, that will get your clients set up and ready for MTD. Okay, so in terms of the solutions, we talked through our license types. You're going to see a lot around AI over the next few months. Big changes coming to QuickBooks in terms of how AI will classify your bank feed transactions automatically. You're not even going to have to review them anymore. It's all going to be done for you. Things like managing your accounts receivable, accounts payable. It'll be like having an extra member on your bookkeeping team checking that. Obviously, the AI is going to be working on the income tax estimator as well. CIS, for those of you that do CIS, Eriona, I know this is one of your favorite areas. There's going to be some really big changes in terms of how CIS will be managed in terms of subcontractors, auto-calculating deductions, filing returns to HMRC, and just automating as much of that process as we can to free up time for you to be concentrating more on advisory services. Okay, so in terms of solving for your income tax source, so you'll be able to manage your multi-source, multi-income clients through our ITSA app. There's updates coming around landlords as well. Joint property owners, that's something we're hearing lots of questions about, and we will have an update coming imminently that will solve for landlords and joint property owners and sole traders with more complex needs as well. I think, yeah, this is the critical step towards simplifying MTD compliance. We're going to have almost 2 million, I think it's 1.88 million individuals impact with more than one source. So we will have all of that functionality within the product. In terms of automation, just going to fly through these ones. So train QuickBooks. If you haven't seen this already, and this is something that pops up the first time you connect to bank feed. I've been demoing this to accountants for about a year now. I've only had one accountant that didn't click the skip button when this came up. This is a tool that allows you to automatically create rules for bank feeds. It's going to save you so much time. So if you see this pop up the first time you connect your bank feed for the clients, don't click the skip button is my advice. It will create the rules that are just going to streamline the process. We've got our recurring transactions, new auto invoice reminders in our self-employed. We can set up reminders on behalf of your clients that's just going to send out up to 3 reminders. One of the key feedbacks we're hearing from small businesses, they're not getting paid on time. Let's automate that process to help them get paid on time. And obviously receipt capture, that sits at the key of all of these, all our automation, and it's going to get a lot smarter. The updates you're going to see over the next 2 to 3 months, I feel, are the biggest changes we'll have seen in the receipt capture process in the last 10 years. Okay. I feel like I've done a lot of talking, David.
I think you're doing a good job with it. What I was just looking at as well is probably for about half an hour, I've been really panicking because your clock, I think the battery's gone on it, and it said 11:45 for the whole time. And it's only now that it's actually lined up.
Even twice
just coincidentally.
even a stock clock is right twice a day,
About,
something like that.
That's it. So about 15 minutes ago, I looked at you and I was like, oh man, we have overshot this one. And I was like, oh no, we're okay. So no, you're doing a good job. I think keep going. You're running through it.
Okay, so just in terms of your MTD journey with QuickBooks, let's bring it all together, wrap it all up. So this is the flow that we're working on. This is the journey map. So getting your current clients ready for MTD, and Eriona's shared some great best practice. Getting your templates, your practice-led comms, education, all going to be really key. This is an opportunity to find and attract new clients. All of those sole traders out there that have been using spreadsheets, writing down on scraps of paper, they're going to have to do it digitally now. So making some use of some of our Intuit tools like MailChimp, the Pro Advisory Directory to find and attract new clients. Making sure you've got the right software solution for those clients. And as we said earlier, that's likely to be the Ledger, the Sole Trader, or the Simple Start. Reach out to us if you want more information about any of those different license types. Getting your clients onboarded. Again, we can make use of Practice Manager and the workflows there. We're going to see agentic AI. You're going to hear a lot about agentic AI coming up, but one of the agents we've created is going to be doing onboarding. So if you've got clients that may be using a different software or an Excel, you'll be able to use an AI agent to look at that Excel spreadsheet, to create a chart of accounts, to do the opening balances, kind of the manual work that we don't really want to be spending time doing. Really key for us, join the pilot. So if you go into any of your MTD enabled QuickBooks licenses, you'll see the option to join the pilot. Get ahead of the curve, prepare for MTD, just experience what that looks like. And if you sign up now, you'll be able to do the final declaration process at the end of the year. So bringing that a year ahead of some of the competition out there as well, and being prepared for that. Managing client. Sorry,
Could I
Ariana.
do that that you just mentioned regarding the pilot scheme? Sorry to put you off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I think it's so, like, I agree with you, it's so important to get your client, as many clients as you can onto the pilot scheme, not just to learn for yourselves what you need to do, but right now the team at QuickBooks or any app that you're going to use are available. Right, and it's not so easy to get everybody set up initially because you need to do the registration with HMRC and then connect the app to the account with HMRC. That takes some time and sometimes it doesn't work. So if you're able to get over those hurdles now, whilst the team are available and on hand to help you, it would make such a difference to, let's say, a month before or in April, where everyone is going to be asking for help. And let's face it, there's not going to be enough capacity to help everyone straight away, right? So I'd say use that advantage basically that you have right now. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great feedback. 'Cause that's exactly what we saw last time round with MTD. Everyone left it for the last minute, and there was almost a bit of a panic, and resources get really stretched. Let's get ahead of the curve, join the pilot, give us feedback, and experience what that flow looks like for yourselves. Couple of other things, just managing your client workflows. You can do that in Practice Manager, simplifying the compliance with AI and automation, and just retaining and growing your clients. Use this as an opportunity to deliver more high value services, advisory, upselling, for example. Okay, I feel like I've covered off pretty much everything I wanted to run through there, David.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Anthony. That's great. And I think we've got the QR code up again now, so I'll leave that up for a few seconds. If you didn't scan it before, now's the time to scan that on your phone. Try out the MTD workload calculator as well. So just to jump on then and to do a bit of a pitch. So if you liked what you saw with the little small demo that we had, we've got a much bigger demo coming up on the 9th of July. We're going to dive in with Fernando and do a real nitty gritty sort of how it works in detail. So if you want to go in and actually see some more of how this is going to work practically in terms of what you're going to see as the accountant, what the client's going to see, how it's going to work on a day-to-day basis, and it's going to bulk out that small little demo that we just had, then definitely make sure that you get signed up for that. We'll send through the details after this webinar as well. So that leads us on to a bit of a Q&A session. So remember, if you've got any questions now's the time to put them in before we log off in a few minutes. I have got a couple of questions that have filtered through, so let's start with some of them in case anybody else has got any more as well. So I think one of the first ones is in terms of one of the questions that's come through is with these quarterly submissions, have we heard anything about, is there going to be a bill generated at each quarter? So our client's going to be paying a bill to HMRC every single quarter.
Yeah, I don't think
On Eriona.
that's not what's going to happen right now. Initially, the idea is just to get this industry onto apps to have an idea, to have a better idea of what their income is looking like, so they can start to prepare for the tax, which will be at the end of the year. That remains as it is. Now, whether this will change after a few years, we'll see. But that's not the point of this right now.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And one that's come in, Anthony, this might be for your Eriona, you can pick it up. So we've got the 4 quarterly submissions, and then there's this final submission on top of that. Is that final submission actually the tax return, or is it separate to the tax return? So where you showed us that in the system a minute ago, is that actually the tax return, or is it completely different?
So yeah, that will be the tax return. And what's really good is that we've mapped from all of our ledgers in the chart of accounts directly to the relevant boxes for the self-assessment. So all of that information is going to be pulled through. Now, I had a bookkeeping practice in the past, and I actually found self-assessments can be a bit of a pain to do. They're fairly manual process and time consuming. And one of the real advantages of MTD is that we're automating all of that. So a large proportion of the self-assessment for the final declaration is going to be pre-populated. Now you will have the opportunity to make adjustments, whether that's tax allowance adjustments, tax credits, dividends, pensions. You're going to have all the opportunity as you would on a standard SA form to make any adjustments there. But the idea here is we're pulling through as much information as possible through those quarterly submissions, so that when it comes to the final declaration, that data's already in the system and to be submitted.
I would just go a little bit further with that, because I've heard some people saying it doesn't have to be accurate initially, as long as you submit something, it's fine. But I personally, we won't be going down that route, because if you're saying to your clients, don't worry, we'll just submit something, that means they're not taking this seriously. And when it does become a requirement to be accurate in what you're submitting, then you're going through that learning curve again and making it more difficult. You're just delaying that issue for you. You're going to have an issue getting them on the apps right now, and then later on having an issue on making sure that it's accurate. So if you use apps like this, get everything in accurately, then there shouldn't be too much to do when the law slightly changes and says, right now I want them to be accurate. You can carry on as usual, and you don't have to go through this learning curve all over again. So yeah, that's one thing that I would recommend people to do.
I think also if they're kind of suggesting it's not going to be accurate, they're not taking advantage of the automation that this system should be introducing. Because if you've connected your bank feeds, if you're using receipt capture, then actually at the end of the quarter, there's no reason why it wouldn't be accurate.
Yeah.
There might be some adjustments to be made. I think where there's some questions is, yeah, there's going to always at the end of the year, there's adjustments made. So is the balance that the client sees in QuickBooks really going to reflect what their tax submission? But there's also the ability and the functionality to make some adjustments through the year, or to have that conversation with the client that there will be some changes and this is what we're expecting. But I think through the automation, we should be seeing some accurate estimates in the software.
But also they're missing out on the opportunity for the conversations. Because if you don't have a true idea of what's going on, then the conversation is worthless, right? And that's an opportunity missed.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think we've got time for one more question, and this is a great question actually. So just to bulk it out in terms of what we saw with VAT was obviously, as you know, MTD for VAT, everybody went to file their first VAT return and then realised that their agent authorisation, as they sort of knew it, was a little bit redundant. Are we going to see the same sort of thing with what we're coming through with ITSA in terms of the online sort of agent services accounts that we've got, are they going to be okay? What do we link up with QuickBooks? How do we then file this actually to HMRC and link it through?
So we've just been through this process in setting up our clients and authorizing them. We did go through the agent services account. There was a bit of a process in, you had to have all your clients' details to hand, and once you've put them all in, it wanted to double check, what does the year end actually look like, and what trades does the business have? Are they accurate based on what we think they are? So from past tax returns with the different classifications, do you want to name them in terms of what they are as well? And then it will let you know whether you can put that client through the process or not. And once you've had that, there were some restrictions, like currently, is the client's tax up to date and stuff like that. I'm guessing that won't be an issue come April. For now, there is that. But then once that was done, going into QuickBooks, for example, if you have an account for them, great. It's pretty simple to get them connected. Just once you do have the account and you're connecting it, there is a bit of a process in the information that you have to put through, which took a little bit of time for us until we finally figured it out. But once you do, then it's super simple. But it almost looks like you're authorizing yourself as the accountant rather than the client, which threw us off because we thought, does that mean the client needs their own account, not agent service, their own kind of gov account? And we know that not every client will have that or will ever have that, let's face it, because they're not interested in logging in and seeing anything, especially this sector. But it was our details that we were putting through. So whoever's the owner of the agent services account for our firm, it's me. So I was putting my details through, and then it was connecting up the two, and then you got we're all connected now, you're ready to go. So that did take a bit of time, but once you've done the first few, then it's pretty simple to do.
Another reason to sign up for the pilot, to see what it involves to get clients registered. I think on our MTD hub, on our QuickBooks website, there is a list of eligible and ineligible clients for the pilot, because there are still some clients that won't be able to sign up during this pilot or beta phase, but will still be required to submit come April. MPs, for some reason, I don't know if there's something disreputable about MPs, but they're on the list of ineligible currently.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that in any way, by the way.
So that was amazing. That's our time. That's pretty much drawn to a close now. So thank you so much to you both for the input today. That's really invaluable. For everybody listening, I really hope that you've got something practical to take away with. And I think the overall resounding message from today is, don't leave it any longer. It's coming in April, whether we like it or not. So let's get on with it now. And there's all of those steps that we've just talked about, from communicating with clients, segmenting your client base, getting onto the pilot, for example, with QuickBooks, then actually getting your clients to then use this stuff, all the way through to then actually signing up with HMRC, making sure that information can be submitted with HMRC. And there's going to be little bumps in the road as you go along. And as we know, trying to do this stuff right before the deadline is never going to work. So I just encourage everybody to do it now. Do the follow-up. You'll get an email through in terms of, right, this is what the next steps are, and with QuickBooks and working together, but just start to take that action now. And then also join us on that webinar in a couple of weeks as well to look at some more of the detail within there. Just a reminder, the webinar is recorded. So if you ran us to the toilet, or Amazon came at the door, or whatever it may be, then it's going to be recorded. We'll whip that round after. You can go back and look at any bits. Please feel free to share it as well with anybody that you think this is relevant for. So colleagues, team members, other business owners that you work alongside as well. Feel free to pass it around, share the love, so to speak, make sure that they're prepared as well. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much, Eriona, for today. And we'll let you get on with the rest of the day. And it's time for lunch.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Speak to you later. Bye.